there is no negotiation, there is no protocol, and there is no resolution, as important as they are, that can compensate for the depth and breadth of that generational loss. And that loss notwithstanding, it was the considered opinion of the reborn Republic of Armenia that we should seek a normalization of relations with the Republic of Turkey without preconditions. And I think this is for all the critique that I have leveled against all three Armenian administrations, this one, I think, demonstrated a political maturity and a calmness and calculation of policymaking that befitted a new independent Armenia. Unfortunately, we remained alone in that policy proposition. And on the last day of January in 1992, having the honor of representing the Armenian Republic in foreign relations, I went to Prague to help enter Armenia into the Conference on Security and Cooperation in Europe, the CSCE, which later became the OSCE. Armenia had just been recognized by the United States on Christmas Day in 1991 by an address by President Bush Sr. There was euphoria, there was excitement. Mato and many others from the diaspora came to join their colleagues in newly independent Armenia to build a foreign ministry from the bottom up. And when I walked in that room in Prague, expecting a sailing into international relations, the reality of Armenian-Turkish relations and their legacy struck me immediately. Instead of the welcome that we expected from my good friend Hikmet Çetin, the distinguished former foreign minister of Turkey, Turkey immediately took the floor and posited three preconditions to our entry into the CSCE. Those three preconditions were that Armenia was to recognize de jure the existing borders based on the treaties of Moscow and Kars, the infamous and illegal treaties between the Kemalists and the Bolsheviks, our version of Molotov-Ribbentrop. Number two, the genocide was to come off the agenda in terms of Armenia's political vocabulary and the quest to have it reaffirmed around the world. And number three, a condemnation of terrorism without a concomitant condemnation of the highest form of terrorism, that's state terrorism, which is otherwise known as genocide. Later, Karabakh and its return, if you will, to Azerbaijan became an added precondition. But for those of you who have actually read the protocols that are on the table today, you will see that those three preconditions of the Turkish side have found their way there one way or another. And the only way that they're not preconditions is if they've been accepted already. And therefore they're not preconditions. Now, my response at the time, and I don't know, considering what's gone on in Armenia in the last year or so, maybe I made a big mistake 18 years ago when I entered that room. And I said that these are issues for resolution between Armenia and Turkey. That the resolution of these outstanding issues can take place in two ways. Number one is the establishment of diplomatic relations through an exchange of notes, the exchange of diplomatic legations, and the use of that diplomatic relationship to build confidence and over time to resolve the issues that come to us from history and which are very much part of the modern agenda. Or, number two, if Turkey wants to put it all on the table right here in front of the scores of countries with Secretary Baker sitting next to me, then let's put it all on the table right here. And let's go back to 1921 and the treaties of Kars and Moscow, and 1915, and the great loss and dispossession of the Armenian people, which was crowned by those illegal treaties. There was a whirlwind of diplomatic activity, and via the intermediation of Secretary Baker and other partners in Europe, Turkey withdrew its veto. Turkey withdrew its veto, and we entered the CSCE. And 3 consecutive administrations to date, all their failings and mistakes and disregard of human rights notwithstanding, were able nonetheless to keep this policy until recently. I think that Prime Minister Erdogan is a very honest man. And I think when he speaks on behalf of his people. And I think that we have to commend him for that. But Prime Minister Erdogan and the Foreign Minister and Mr. Baris and the delegation from the Turkish Majlis Parliament, which is visiting Washington this week in advance of the committee hearing on March 4th, all of them are speaking their position and speaking their mind. These are the people who are going to realize and carry out the protocols. And from day one, it's been very clear that not only is the Treaty of Kars the ratification and legitimation of the dispossession and genocide of the Armenian people in the protocols and subject to ratification, but there is a policy of linkage, which as much as we try to escape from it, and as much as it has made sense in the past diplomatically, it comes back to the crossroads, and there's a demand to connect it with Mountainous Karabakh. And using the language of occupation from Ankara and the leaders of the modern Turkish Republic, who built their state, in all due respect, based on the exclusion of the Armenian people from their homeland, not to mention Kurds and Alawis and Cypriots, to use the language of occupation to try to establish linkage and to go for the jugular on the protocol.